This is News Channel 20 at 10.
They say we're young and we don't know. We won't find out until we grow, babe. I got you, babe.
Music from the State House tonight, though it wasn't for celebration, as it looks like the state of Illinois will miss its budget deadline for a second year in a row.
Now, what you heard was State Rep Chad Hayes singing Sonny and Cher's I Got You, Babe from the House floor tonight. He
then went on to cite its role in the film Groundhog Day and compared it to playing over and over again to repeated attempts by Democrats to pass a controversial measure.
We're going to have more on that effort in just a moment. But first, Governor Bruce Rauner calling today, quote, a stunning failure, as he says lawmakers failed to send him a balanced budget in time. But Democrats say the governor is putting schools, services, and other state programs in jeopardy by insisting his so-called turnaround agenda be part of the next state budget.
Keep the government running, keep the schools open, keep the universities open, social service providers from closing. So he is now prepared to suggest that. And so we are going to suggest that we begin those negotiations today with one of the working groups that deals with the budget.
We can't hold our government services hostage for this massive tax hike. And President Cullerton was candid on Friday that they've been holding up operations funding to put pressure on our administration. They want pressure in our corrections system. They want pressure in our healthcare system. They want pressure on our university system. That is wrong. It's not fair. We can't allow it.
President Cullerton's office fired back in a statement that says, in part, quote, we are hopeful this is a serious effort toward meaningful compromise and not just material for news conferences and political games. It is constitutionally impossible for the General Assembly to pass today the proposal the Republicans first filed today. It's unfortunate that they chose to criticize rather than support this idea last week when the Senate president first suggested it. Lawmakers still in session at this very hour, even though it's become apparent that a budget deal is not likely.
We begin our coverage at the Capitol tonight with State House reporter Jordan Abadea and News Channel 20's Adam Reif.
Well, just after 10 o'clock, the House remains in recess, as they have been for more than an hour. State House reporter Jordan Abadea here with me in the balcony of the House. They are expected to reconvene shortly, and they're going to take up a funding bill for education that we'll talk about in just a minute. But first, moments ago in the Senate, what some might call a surprise 2048 getting voted down. Explain what that is.
2048 was the bill that we saw the House Democrats pass last week. It's essentially a budget bill. Things like human services, higher ed, K through 12 education, getting millions of dollars more, around $700 million more on that. And then it also relies on those court orders and consent decrees to continue funding operations of the government. Basically a stopgap plan, not a full budget. It's the one that caused all that commotion on the floor last week because Republicans were so unhappy with the process of it passing. Now, we did hear that a lot of Senate Dems were not on board with the budget, didn't think it was a good idea. They say it's $7 billion out of balance. Republicans and some of those Senate Democrats agreed with them. So this bill did not pass the Senate, and that coming as a shock to some people, especially late on the last day of session when Democrats and Republicans have sort of gone out into all-out war at this point.
With the clock ticking, of course, towards that midnight deadline before you need a supermajority starting tomorrow. The thought was, if President Cullerton calls this, he's the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, there's a chance we could have a budget in some form by the end of today. Of course, Governor Rauner's pledged not to sign that. He'd veto it anyway, but the number's overwhelming. Only 17 voting aye, 31 voting against it. So quite a few Democrats deciding this is not the spending plan we want.
Yeah, the Senate and the House have a little bit of a competitive nature to them, so they don't always agree with each other. And I think
certainly don't want to take Speaker Madigan's lead over and over and
over.
Right,
so I think this is one of those issues that we've seen. But they did pass a separate bill. It's House Bill 2990, and that bill would fund education. And what we saw is essentially this bill is the education part of the 2048, the House Dem budget, and it gives Chicago Public Schools pension parity, increases education funding by about $100 million so that no school loses money from what they're getting this year under fiscal year 16's budget. And then it also puts about $700 million into what they're calling an equity grant, and that would make sure that schools with high levels of poverty would get more money under the current formula. That being called a bailout for CPS, along with the pension parity part, because CPS is a big winner under this bill.
Governor Rauner calling for a clean funding bill for K through 12, and he may get it if the House approves, but listen to the intense debate on the Senate floor here.
This is great news if you live in Chicago. But if you don't live in Chicago, you know what you get for the Chicago bailout bidding war going on? You get the bill. Congratulations.
Be honest, there are hundreds of school districts that we each represent that are going through the same financial challenges as the Chicago Public School District today. That's a fact. We can't ignore it because it's not convenient for politics. It doesn't make the top of the fold when we talk about Beardstown. Let's be honest. But the plight of Beardstown should be part of this conversation.
Here on the House floor, some gamesmanship perhaps. The House did reconvene, expected to take up this K-12 funding bill, as you mentioned, Jordan, but asking for an immediate caucus. One person saying at least 14 hours. Not sure if that's a joke, but that would get us through till tomorrow. How do you see this playing out?
So I do think that this is putting the ball back in Governor Rauner's court. We saw that press conference around 5 o'clock today from the governor basically saying, pass my stopgap budget or it's your fault. I think this is going to be Democrats' version of that, saying, here, we're going to give you a bill to fund education so you can veto it or you can pass it. And that's the point that we're at right now, but no full budget is a reality, at least tonight.
Forcing the governor to make a decision. We'll be here all night as long as they are. We'll have updates online, of course, newschannel20.com. For now, for State House reporter Jordan Abadea, Adam Reif in the House chamber, back to the studio.
Thanks to both of you. No budget means no state funding for social service agencies. Many of these organizations forced to reduce staff and services or even close their doors. News Channel 20's Lindsay Hess joining us now with how the people using these services are being affected.
Many of these programs support Illinois' most vulnerable, like the homeless, children, and people with disabilities. And these agencies say it's going to take a long time to undo the damage caused by the budget standoff.
Who would have ever thought a year ago we'd say we're 1 year, without a budget?
Social service agencies fighting to stay afloat, waiting for funding as the state of Illinois reaches 11 months without a budget.
A lot of times people don't understand why they're not able to get services, why we're turning them away.
The homeless being turned away from shelters.
There are no day services. There's no assistance to families needing to do laundry, persons needing to get ID and information. Those people are on the streets.
Services for rape victims being cut.
Not only just from our hearts do they deserve to heal and to recover, but they are witnesses to a crime. I mean, their participation in the criminal justice system helps ensure that we have justice, and they also help, mitigate against recidivism.
Some agencies even forced to shut down altogether.
When you close a non-for-profit, that staff goes away. The capacity goes away, the board members go away, and you can't flip a switch and have those agencies come back. It will be dramatic to communities like Springfield.
Another budget deadline looms, and many agencies say they're losing optimism not only for fiscal year 2016, but 2017 too.
It's very bleak, very distressing.
I don't know if we can take another whole year without a budget.
We are told many organizations have drained their savings, and there aren't many banks willing to give loans to these agencies, considering the state's budget situation. But a plan on the way to the governor would provide $700 million in funding for social service agencies. John?
Thank you, Lindsay. A survey released today finds more than half of Sangamon County businesses are concerned sales could be hurt by the budget battle. News Channel 20's Eric Feldman joins us now with how businesses are handling the strain.
John, that survey done by UIS found businesses are predicting a worse year in Sangamon County, and it's all tied to the lack of a state budget. The retail and medical industries were more wary of the upcoming year for business. The survey found public sector companies and nonprofits more critical than the private sector when it comes to the budget standoff. Steve Balin owns the downtown Springfield sports bar, Balin's. He says he gets state workers who talk about the budget, how it's affecting their spending all the time.
I'm not nervous right now, but if it extends for a longer period of time, I'm sure everybody's mindset will change.
Now, only 250 of about 1,500 businesses in Sangamon County participated in the survey, which is taken twice a year. Sangamon County, of course, has lots of state workers, but the survey did not examine the effects of those employees possibly changing their spending habits should the budget standoff keep going.
Well, not the best of days today. We saw some scattered showers and storms, and then we also had some very warm, very muggy conditions. Temperatures easily topped off in the 80s here across central Illinois, and some of the warmest temperatures were quite toasty over the eastern part of the viewing area, with highs flirting very close to 90 for Champaign, Danville, and for Paris. Right now, though, the temperatures have cooled back into the 60s and lower 70s across most of central Illinois. We also saw some scattered showers and storms that blew up earlier this afternoon, but then once we lost that daytime heating, the showers and thunderstorms really quickly dissipated, and right now it's looking relatively quiet out there. But again, come tomorrow, you'll be scrambling for the rain gear once again with more scattered on-again, off-again rain showers and thunderstorms, and some of these could be putting out locally heavy rainfall. I'll let you know how much rain to expect and how much longer these showers and thunderstorms are planning to stick around. Your complete forecast coming up in just a couple minutes.
Still ahead, the crime spree investigators say happened in central Illinois over the weekend and where the case stands tonight.